Welcome to Better Odds Sports Betting. Here's our host, Kev O'Neill and Kyle Hunter.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Better Odds Sports Betting. I'm Kev O'Neill, and I have my partner in crime here, Kyle Hunter. And we have one of our good friends in the sports betting business, Mr. Doug Upstone, coming on to talk some college basketball. Doug, spring is in the air. How you feeling, man?
Hey, how can you not like this time of year, man? I put on Twitter yesterday. I mean, middle of the afternoon, you got a Conference USA game, and right away, for those that had, was it to Arlington, or that didn't have Arlington, that looked like a lost cause, all of a sudden they make some shots at the end of the game, cover late, and Louisiana ends up on the short end. So here we go, friends. Let's get it done.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen to Michigan last night. They turned the ball over instead when they got close. That's pretty much predictable, I guess. But that's awesome. Yeah, I love this time of year, Doug, but we're missing our annual baseball trip where me and you get together, get some beers. So I've ranted enough about that, but man, hopefully it's coming.
Well, it'll come. It's just a matter of what the perception of life will be about it when it does arrive. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what's up, Andrew Canfield? How you doing, man? Thanks for checking in the show here. And anybody else can check out the YouTube channels, either Kyle's or the Odds Breakers, to make comments. So you guys can obviously participate in the show. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Kyle, what's been up in Ohio?
Oh, it's been pretty warm here, but it's probably a false early spring here in Ohio. I'm not going to be as lucky as you guys to where it just stays warm the rest of the way. But I sure love this time of the year. Like Doug said, all the action going on during the day. Some great stuff coming here for the next 3 weeks or so. I know all of us will be really busy, but it's worth it. It's a fun time of the year.
Oh, for sure. And, Kyle, I had to wear my Wisconsin hat after securing the Big Ten bank shot extravaganza last week against, or a couple days ago, actually, against Purdue. And, I got to tell you, I had Wisconsin plus 3.5, but man, that was getting a little dicey. And then as soon as Davison missed that free throw, I'm like, there is no chance that Ivy's not making a three here. And boom, makes a three. And then Chucky just coming down the stretch. They leave him wide open. He calls glass, throws that thing up, and banks a three. And how you like that? Big Ten champs, guys. I got to tell you, I thought Wisconsin was going to be one of the bottom 4 teams in the Big Ten coming in. Holy cow, is Greg Gard underappreciated.
Very good.
He deserves a ton of credit this year.
Agreed. Yeah, he really does. I mean, I'd seen him play early, and it's like, okay looking team, but certainly not great, and got it done. Now, I just speaking of one thing of the Big Ten, I know before we get too far here, how do you guys think the Big Ten will do in the NCAA tournament as a whole? I mean, do you see anybody making it to the Final Four, or do you see multiple teams making it to the Final Four? What do you guys think?
So the Big Ten is like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get. And that's even when they play each other, quoting the old Forrest Gump line there. So I think that now, last year, the perception was everyone said the Big Ten is going to do great and the Pac-12 is going to suck. Well, the tournament obviously was completely different. The Pac-12 was great and the Big Ten sucked. But that doesn't mean they're not strong. And the Big Ten is still a very strong conference, at least top 3, if not top 2. I know SEC is number 1 this year, but what you have to see is some of the talent that these teams have. I think that there's some great bargains out there for teams like Illinois. 50-1 on DraftKings right now. Why are they 50-1? This is a team that felt the pressure of the loss, right? Now, Purdue's not a good deal right now, but they also lost to North Texas last year in the tournament. So I wonder if they're going to make a little bit of a run. And Wisconsin is going to be that fade team because they're not top 30 in offensive efficiency or defensive efficiency in KenPom. So everyone's going to fade them. So you might actually get some value early on them just on an ATS perspective. So it's really a mixed bag, but the truth is they're going to have as many teams in the tournament as any other conference just because they're all still pretty deep. That's my opinion, Kyle.
I mean, it's been so long since the Big Ten's won a national title. I was a freshman in high school. I mean, this is ridiculous. They've had so many good teams for many years, and they've gotten to the Final Four many times, final game many times, haven't been able to get over the top. I would think the Big Ten will get a team in the Final Four this year. There's multiple chances. Illinois is one of my favorite futures plays. If I were just taking a chance on somebody, 50-1. Their upside is really high. Now, certainly they could lose in game 2 or 3. It wouldn't surprise me too much, but they have the upside of a team that could win the tournament. So, I would like Illinois as a buy low candidate. Purdue, I don't know what to think. Their defense is not as good as they should be. Ivy's great. Obviously, Edie's a great player. I'm concerned that their defense isn't good enough. And then the Big Ten has plenty of teams that'll make it and could win a couple games, but I don't think they'll go all the way. Wisconsin, I think they're probably at least somewhat overachievers because they have such a good coach. They take care of the basketball very well. Having said that, I don't think they're a team that would lose right away in the tournament, but I don't know if they can win the tournament either.
Yeah. My thought on it is that it's going to be, and this is true most years, but it depends on who they play, because it seems like each team has their style of play. Okay. And if they get away from what they normally like to do, that's when they struggle. And so that's what it's going to be. I mean, if Purdue, for example, faced 4 teams that like to play fast, okay, they're in the Final Four. I mean, the talent wise, they're good enough to do it. But if they play teams that are going to slow the ball down, try and keep it in the 50s or even 60s, that's where they're going to struggle. So, yeah, I mean, Illinois, if they're making threes, they're as good as anybody. If they don't, they're very, very beatable, So yeah, I can't say. I think one team will get there, but if none of them did, I can't say I'd be surprised by that either, to tell you the truth.
Great points. I think that's going to make the whole filling out your bracket parity extra exciting, thinking about teams like, okay, Purdue's playing some teams with some high pace here. I think they might have a shot in this quadrant. And then you might see Purdue in a bad quadrant against Texas Tech or somebody like that. And you're like, oh, I don't like that as much, right? So great points there. I love, you're getting me too excited right now about the brackets. I love me some March Madness. Well, this is about this weekend, and we have a lot of great stuff to talk about for this weekend. And before we get into a few games here, I wanted to ask you guys, what are some late season betting thoughts or trends that you might have? And so we'll start with you, Doug.
As far as anything late season, to be honest with you, I don't have a lot of things that I look at necessarily. I just more look at teams that have something to play for. Okay. So if for example, you have a team that has the ability, like for example, in their conference tournament, if they could move up, that would be beneficial to them. And that's really the main thing I'm looking for is teams like that. Again, there's, how many games are there this weekend that the teams have absolutely nothing to play for? So I really am cutting down the number of games that I'm going through on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because it just, it literally does feel like a coin flip for me in that regard. So yeah, I don't have a lot that I look at. My handicapping pretty much is staying the same, other than the fact that I am reducing the number of games to where, no different than the NBA or the NHL at the end of the year, where you look for just teams that have something to play for, and you have something, that some weight that behind it that you can try and figure some information out that makes sense.
Right. The NFL as well. So yeah,
yes.
Very good points. Kyle, what about you?
I've got one here that I pulled up here last night that I wanted to share. This is a bit of a unique one. I'm surprised it's this way. This is from game number 26 of the season on. So all of them, unless they've had some major COVID issues this year, would be game 26 on. The spread of 15 or larger. So we're laying points with the big favorites. The thought here is they're playing against a team that might not care. In some cases, we have seen some large blowouts. The opposing team's ATS win percentage is 50% or higher, and you're laying 15 points or more. It's actually 63-21 in the last 84. So this is over a span of since about 2012. So a pretty big span. Obviously, there won't be too many games that fit it because it's a really large spread. But I thought it was interesting to share nonetheless, because 63-21 over a period of 9-10 years is certainly interesting. So don't be afraid to lay a big number with a team that probably has something to play for. The other thing I would say is the very end of the season for two teams that are not very good, the over is better. And for two teams that have a lot to play for, maybe they're playing, they're on the bubble for the NCAA tournament, or maybe they're playing for a regular season title. Those are good games to play unders on. Specifically, two teams with a really high winning percentage, above 60% in March. It's about 56% unders here in the last 6 or 8 years. So under would be the way I'd look in the important games. Over would be the way I would look in the games that really don't mean anything to either team.
That makes sense. Less defense of the team, yet they're looser and they can, start getting hot. That totally makes sense for me why the over would hit. And under, when you're very kind of tying down, trying to stop the other team in the important games, makes total sense. Just like how you bet like some of those championship games. I agree with you. And yeah, that's an interesting trend because, a lot of people say senior night, and it gets overvalued in my opinion. I think, any creative spots, you assign a point, and you don't get too cute over it. Don't talk yourself into it because I've seen senior nights get destroyed before, it's just, it doesn't matter. You only remember the ones you possibly won. In many cases, sometimes you lost. Maybe you thought, I bet on someone on senior night and it worked. So keep that in mind. All right. Well, let's get into a few games then this weekend. And Doug, you got a really good game for tonight. And it's funny. I got pretty close to a play here, and maybe you guys can talk me on or off one. Richmond versus St. Bonaventure, and Bonaventure is -3.5. The total is 137. Doug, you have the floor.
Yes, I saw this game. I thought, hey, this is sort of an interesting. It's on ESPN2, so this is the last A10 game on Friday night that they've been regularly broadcasting. Now Richmond, in their last 7 games, guys, they have either shot the ball really well or really poorly. Okay. To my point, like I say, they're hot as lava or cold as a tub of ice. Coach Mooney's team in their last 7 games, 4 of those games, they've shot 47% or higher. And in the other 3 games, they've shot in the 30 percentile range. Okay. So you can imagine their record is 4-3 based on that. So that's kind of how things worked out for them. Now, St. Bonaventure, early in the season with a veteran team, okay, with a lot of experience, they played, I'm going to say they underachieved at least in terms of perception. Then they had the big 7-game win streak. So that everybody's kind of think, okay, here they go. And, then they played St. Joe's recently and, they won 54-52 as I think 7-point favorite on that one. So they lost, but, you could make the case, hey, they're playing VCU next. Well, guess what? They lose by 23 to VCU, shoot a season low 32.7%. So how do you view this game? Well, the one thing that struck me is that both teams, if you look at home road scenarios, both of them are over 140 points. Okay. The total on this game is 138.5. Now, granted, Richmond won the previous game 71 to 61 with a total at 137.5. However, only twice this year have they covered a game in which the total was in the 130. So 2 out of 10, okay, is all they've done. Conversely, St. Bonaventure has scored 55 or less points in their last 2 games. And when that has happened, they are 10-2 against the number. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take the home standing team, which is the Bonnies in this case. I'm going to give the -3.5, and I'm going to say they're going to stop the Spiders, take care of business, and win and cover their last home game.
All right, look at that. Yeah, we're seeing -3.5, -4. Just depends on where you look. It's 4 on DraftKings now. Total's 138. How things always change and always move as we're talking, especially in these times of the morning. Kyle, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I would lean this way as well, and I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Hopefully everybody can see that now. Richmond and St. Bonaventure's earlier game. This is shot quality stats. We love Simon's stats from Shot Quality. Really good job by him. The first game here was 71 to 61. You see this one highlighted in the yellow. What that means is the wrong team won according to the quality of shots there. Now, it should have essentially been a tie, but Richmond won by 10, and they think St. Bonaventure should have won by less than a point. So that was on the road. And as Doug said, they're coming back home here. It's important to know that Osuniyi was out last game for St. Bonaventure, and he's expected to play based on the most recent notes. He's their most important player in the front court, a really good shot blocker. St. Bonaventure has been a little bit disappointing compared to expectations this year, but probably not as disappointing as Richmond. Richmond with Gilliard and Golden should have been far better than what they've been this season. As far as a spot, I think this is a good spot for St. Bonaventure. You know, they come off that loss, and they had been playing very well before that. In fact, you see St. Bonaventure had been consistently winning, and then they have an ugly game against VCU. But what's also interesting is they lost by 23 points. According to the quality of shots they took, they should have lost by less than a point. So really interesting that it seems like they were at least somewhat unfortunate, and they were playing without their best big man. So in this one, St. Bonaventure, their strength has been on offense. Their weakness has been defensively. They've not been as good as expected. But I think this is a team in St. Bonaventure that is likely to finish the season strong. I mean, this is a team last year that was extremely good.
Yep. I
don't see any reason why they wouldn't be invested in this game. So my strong lean here is St. Bonaventure as well.
Yeah, Osuniyi's status is really important to me in this game. I saw the injury on replay, and his knee buckled backwards a little bit, and it really made me worry a little bit. I don't think that. I think that St. Bonaventure knows if he's playing. You said that he was already said he was playing, but I'm worried that he's still injured. They're looking, senior night, big night. That they're gonna, he's gonna want to play here. My problem about St. Bonaventure has always been their depth, because they're always been running on a 6-man rotation, and now they're on a 5-man rotation. But what I will say is that St. Bonaventure's got the best home court out of anybody in this whole conference, and I hate going against them on their home court. Just because one guy is injured doesn't mean the other guys aren't going to step up. So my thoughts were a little bit more towards the over, maybe, to be honest with you. Like you said, when they lost that game, Kyle, they should have made a lot more shots. Well, if their center and their big man is really that banged up, I can see somewhat of a path for Richmond to score the ball, and I wrote down 137, and it was at 137 when I prepped this, and now it's at 138, which I'm like, oh geez, it's getting away from me. But yeah, I think this is just one of those spots where it's hard to bet against St. Bonaventure in this position. Yet I still think Richmond might be able to score some points here inside. They're not a bad inside shooting team, and they do have a bad defense, a bad 3-point defense. So I'm still going to consider that, guys. I mean, Ken Palm's got the over at 131, and let's see what Haslametrics has it at. And I had to change off the screen here. Done a ton of games today here. Yeah, he has it at 138 on the button. So you kind of look between those two. I'm gonna lean to the over with that one. All right, let's move on to Saturday, and this is a pretty big game, Kyle. I'm really glad that you picked this one, because I'm really interested in this game. Boise State versus Colorado State, and I'm predicting the line at about -4, and I'm going to put the total at 131. So I'm going to let you have at it.
Yeah, I want to talk about this game because I think it's a fantastically interesting spot, because Boise State already clinched the Mountain West, but is this a bad spot for them or not? They did lose at home in overtime to Colorado State earlier this year. So I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts, whether I know there's going to be some people that say this is a bad spot for Boise State. I'm taking Colorado State. Having said that, teams in the Mountain West, while Boise State will make the tournament regardless, they don't have a lot of room for error as far as seeding lines in the NCAA tournament, things like that. I would think that they would still be up for a game like this. Also, what a weird first game that was, because Boise State was 13 for 24 from 3-point range and lost, but they were 13 from 24 3-point range, but 14 for 41 on twos. So, I mean, just atrocious on twos, great on threes, really weird game. Boise State is 6th at Haslametrics in away from home performance. If I can get more than a full possession here, I'd be considering Boise State in this one. I think they're just a good enough team that I don't want to lay very many points against them. This is a Boise State team that is playing much better defense than they did a year ago. Colorado State looked a bit better at the beginning of the season than what they have here of late. To me, this is just a really interesting game that I think should go right down to the wire. As far as the total here, because this is such a big game, both teams still, I think, will be playing hard. I would lean to the under in this game. As far as what this total will be, I haven't looked closely at this one. I would think this total will be somewhere in the range of 133, something like that, 134. So if it gets in the mid 130s, I would consider an under. The first game, I believe, was a bit higher than that, but I'm going to lean Boise State, especially if we can get 4 points. Kiev, I don't know if we'll get quite that many points, maybe 3.5, but it depends on what people think of the spot. So I guess I'll open it up to you guys too. Do you guys consider this a bad spot for Boise because they already clinched the Mountain West, or do you think because they lost at home in overtime that they're still really up for a game like this?
Go ahead, Kiev.
I think it's a good spot for the coach and a bad spot for betting on them. I mean, it's great for the coach because he's got options. You don't need to win this team. Boise's in the tournament. I have both teams in the tournament, actually. Yeah. I think these are the two Mountain West teams that are sure in the tournament, no matter what happens to this game or anything else. Boise State already clinching the Mountain West. I mean, are they going to play their asses off and possibly get injured? Yes, coaches do that, and you can't predict that, Kyle. I know, but man, I always think to myself, go get your road revenge, and then what kind of situation are you putting yourself in? I would rather almost rest up for the tournament personally. If I was coaching, I would probably play it pretty hard, maybe this first half, but you also got to get your reps for some of the guys on the bench because you might need them later. That's just me as a coach, not me or what's going to happen. Now, I do see that they were 6th away from home, Kyle, and that that worries me. But you also got to look at the fact that Boise State had I think a much longer, I guess, conference. Colorado State was off from season December 10th through January 4th. Colorado State was off on that COVID pause. That is a long COVID pause here, and I think Colorado State's going to want to. Their home court is fantastic at Colorado State. At a 3, I think I would take. I would probably take Colorado State here in this situation, just because the situation tells me that they're going to want to finish strong at home, and Boise State, there's a chance that they could play some of their scrubs later in this game. But that's all I have. What about you, Doug?
Yeah, I guess I'm more inclined to back Colorado State because they are home. I think the idea of, I'm like you guys, senior night has some value, but, certainly not consistently. But when you have two good teams and you have a team that, in this case, and let's face it, it's certain coaches and certain programs like to try and send a message. And so if they can beat Boise State, knowing full well that they can meet them again in less than a week or about a week, okay, I think that from that standpoint, I think that's something that they're really interested in wanting to do. So I wouldn't be surprised if Colorado State has more reason to play, more ambition to play, and they just go out and get the job done and take care of business against a very good Boise State team. Again, as I said, to send a message to them that, hey, you know what? We're here. We're not going anywhere. Get ready to face us again.
Yeah. One thing I'm looking at here, let me see if I can share my screen again. Add to stream. I'm looking at Boise State, and why are they ranked so high away? Well, they won a lot of away games, but I'm looking at the teams that they beat away: Nevada, New Mexico early, San Diego State. Look at this game, 42-37. Kyle, man. That's even impressive to a low totals better like yourself. That must have been one of the lowest scoring games in basketball. But because Boise State had such bad away games, it makes me wonder if that's their true number is away from home. That away from home thing could also just mean that you weren't covering and weren't scoring what you're supposed to score from an efficiency perspective against some of the teams at home yet you did a little bit better away. So I might fade that trend personally. Their Air Force, yeah, I mean, they beat the crap out of Air Force. Air Force is a terrible team. And then those surprising was UNLV. UNLV was a little bit, I thought UNLV would cover that game personally, but this is probably Colorado State or nothing for me, guys.
I want to note too that this could be a good spot to play a live bet in, because if you do notice that Boise is not playing their regular rotation, then this could get ugly. At the same time, if Boise's putting everything into this game, Boise has a chance to win. So this would be one that if you want to watch this game, you might be able to bet it live as well.
100%. So we're on the next game. All right. Oklahoma State versus Kansas State. And I have Kansas State probably, Ken Pom says -2. I'm going to say it's probably going to be -2 or -3. Might bounce around a little bit. Total, I'm going to predict about 133. Now, Oklahoma's toast. They're toast this year. They're not in the tournament, even with this win. Their only shot at making the tournament is winning their conference tournament. These two teams played earlier in the season, real early, and Kansas State made it a very close game. You know, a lot closer than you'd think, because Oklahoma was looked at as a little bit better of a team earlier in the season. You know, going back to my screen here, I want to show you what direction these two teams have went since. You know, Oklahoma, when they played Kansas State, probably around here, kind of at the top, but then you see their all play metric or all play percentage ranking going down and down and down. Then they got that little pump again, then down. This right here worries me. This says the team's kind of spent. And why would they go on the road here and want to take on a Kansas State team and prove anything when they don't have anything to prove? Now you look at Kansas State's all play percentage. Well, I like what I see here. I like how it's been going up and up and up and up. This tells me they are the better team right now than Oklahoma, not mattering to me what the Ken Pom rating is on this team. So in my opinion here, I think that Kansas State's going to be a play, and they are one game below 500 at senior night. I did try to find some trends through Kyle to match kind of what I went up, and it actually faded against it a little bit. But it was also not a perfect way of looking it up because it counted all March games. I just like the spot for Kansas State, and I hate the spot for Oklahoma. I think Kansas State's going to be a large play for me, especially at -2 or -3. What are your thoughts, Kyle?
So this is my favorite one that we talk about here today, and I figured this was the reason you wanted to look at that trend. But I will say, Kiev, this is my favorite play by a pretty good margin. I like Kansas State a lot in this game. Kansas State has much more to play for here because this team plays really hard for Bruce Weber. You can say a lot of things about Kansas State. They're not really that good of a team, but they're very consistent. They're going to give you effort. I don't know why they wouldn't want to win their last game here at home. Oklahoma has played really poorly of late. In fact, if you look at some of the stats, Oklahoma is 341st in momentum, according to Haslametrics, 309th in away from home rating. Kansas State's 59th in consistency. What you see is what you get. They're not a great team. They're not a bad team. The other thing that is really, really interesting about this one, Oklahoma turning it over at a ridiculous 23.2% on their possessions on offense. Just way too many turnovers. That's really hard to win doing that, especially against quality teams. That's easily the worst in the Big 12. And Kansas State has played the fourth toughest schedule in the country. Guys, this is one of the worst one of the best under 500 teams that we've seen. There's no way that this team would be under 500 in many other leagues. The Big 12 is so good. If you look at it, I don't know why this game would matter near as much to Oklahoma as it does to Kansas State. I think Kansas State, there's been some murmurs about whether, Bruce Weber will continue to come back. I think that the kids like playing for him. I think this is a really good spot for them. Kiev, I really hope this number doesn't get out of hand. I hope this is a 2 or 2.5. I don't want to lay 3.5 or 4 points with Kansas State because they're not that good offensively to want to lay a lot of points with them. Having said that, I just think that what we've seen from Oklahoma lately is completely fade-worthy. And Kansas State, I think you see a big effort from them in this one. I mean, this Kansas State team, like I said, has showed effort pretty consistently. And even in some of their recent games that they lost, I mean, they were beating Texas Tech the majority of the time at Texas Tech, which that's the best home court advantage. According to Haslametrics, I think they're number 1 in home court rating. This is a team that has played extremely well of late. They lost to Iowa State at home by 1 point. According to Shot Quality, they should have won that game by 10 points. They lost at Oklahoma State by 3. According to Shot Quality, they should have won that one by 3. So we have a team that's undervalued here at the end of the season that I think circles the wagons and plays really hard. I like Kansas State quite a bit here.
I guess we shouldn't have gave out the secret here now, Kyle. Geez, man, now it's going to go up. No. I've kicked myself by waiting on stuff like this. Like, let's say it opens up 3.5 later tonight, and then we're going to be like, oh, geez, it's going to go down. And then everyone's thinking the same thing we are. It goes to 4.5. I think I'm going to fire anything under 5 personally, and I just feel good about this situation. The reason, my reasoning for it justifies 5 points, and that's the way I'm going to think about it. Doug, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would have to agree with both you guys on this. I do think the number will be 4, to tell you the truth, and I wouldn't be surprised if it opened at 4, just from the standpoint, because Kansas State, Bruce Weber, he's a strange kind of dude. Just overall, he gets it seems like the poorer the talent is, the harder they play, and for whatever reason, that's just been the MO. And in a lot of cases, not in every case, but in some cases, his best teams in terms of talent just haven't played as well. So I think he's one of those types of coaches. Now, yeah, of course, when he was at Illinois, he had all of Bill Self's team, and then they went to the championship game. But different deal here. And so this, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is well coached, but I don't think the coach and the players are a fit. And I think so once the coach gets his players going forward, I think you'll see the dynamics of that team change. Oklahoma this year, 1-7 straight up as an away underdog, losing by 11 points per game. Again, like you guys say, I can't make a case at all for Oklahoma. So I'll say they're going to be gone later than sooner, and using the term Sooners on that one. Nice. Kansas State, if I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's close, they win close to 10 points.
Need the drum roll soundbite.
There you go.
I think the reason they turn it over is because of Porter Moser's style of offense is going to take them more time to gel. They pass the ball amazingly. You remember Loyola last couple of years, and they're just amazing cohesiveness in their team. Their assist to field goals were just amazing, and it's going to take more time for Oklahoma to gel. But I certainly will be looking for a team to be on next year in Oklahoma.
Kiev, one more note that I should have noted when I was talking here. Elijah Harkless has been out for the last few games, probably going to be out for this one too for Oklahoma. So having said that, I think the number will be bigger than 2 or 2.5, and it probably deserves to be.
All right, more margin for us. All right, let's move on then to another big game. I have Utah Valley versus New Mexico State, -6 total 135. This is big, right, Kyle? This is a big game, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Utah Valley and New Mexico State, I think the viewers could probably guess who selected this one just based on the game. But, I wanted to talk about this game because if you look at the WAC standings, it's really interesting. Kiev, you and I have talked a little bit about New Mexico State. New Mexico State has played very good in some games, and then their inconsistency level is just ridiculous. I don't know what to think of this New Mexico State team because they should be very good. They have a good coach, a lot of talent. Right now, there's 3 teams at the top of the WAC with 4 losses. Stephen F. Austin, Seattle, and New Mexico State. Sam Houston and Grand Canyon both have 5 losses. But, I mean, you look at New Mexico State, they go to Grand Canyon and just wax the floor with them. I mean, really shocked me. I didn't see that one coming at all. And then the next game, they go to Seattle and beat Seattle pretty easily, like it's nothing. Then they lose on the road at Chicago State. I mean, how do you lose at Chicago State after you beat those other 2 teams? I do not understand that one whatsoever. They lose at home to Stephen F. Austin by 2. Stephen F. Austin is good. New Mexico State blew a big lead in that game. So here you go to the final game of the season. Utah Valley, they lost to Utah Valley by 4 on the road. Utah Valley comes into this one. there's some stats about this one that kind of interest me. New Mexico State, 303rd in consistency at Haslametrics, so obviously they're back and forth. At the same time, Utah Valley's 321st in consistency, so you don't really know what you're going to get from these two teams. The upside is very high for New Mexico State. Utah Valley's edge here is 3-point shooting. For New Mexico State, it's second chance. They have really good offensive rebounding. This is a big game for New Mexico State. I know New Mexico State has a higher upside than Utah Valley. I would want to bet New Mexico State in this one. I do see the number here on KenPom is 5. It was 4 yesterday, so now it's 5. Kind of curious. I don't know what the other ones have it at. I would think 5 is probably about right. I don't want to lay more than 5 or 5.5 because New Mexico State has been so inconsistent. But I will say that, their upside is just so high that I think New Mexico State is probably the right side in this one.
Doug, anything on this one?
Yeah, I watched that New Mexico State Grand Canyon game, and and it's the first time I'd actually seen New Mexico State, and obviously had followed along how their season gone. And my takeaway, and then what you're talking about, Kyle, their games afterwards, I think it's just one of those teams that they play to the level of the competition, and so when motivated and ready to go, they play very well. If not, okay, they just show up and kind of let the other team dictate the tempo, dictate how the game is played, and they feel they have enough talent to win. Obviously, Chicago State, they really overestimated that situation. But I think they'll be motivated here. They'll be ready to play. And I think this team, with their, like you said, their offensive rebounding is outstanding. When they start making some 3-point shots, they don't have to make a ton, but when they start making some 3-point shots, this is a team that can pull away from anyone, and they can play very, very good perimeter defense. Okay, when they get going, so I think they'll take this one rather easily, or more easily than most people anticipate. I like New Mexico State, the Aggies, to get the job done on this one.
Well, that's Wisconsin in a nutshell, playing down to their competition, man, and that's why they haven't moved so much on KenPom. And I was saying on the podcast earlier this week that Iowa's the opposite. They blow away the bad teams and lose to the good ones. It's kind of like an interesting dichotomy between those teams. I wrote down 3 weeks ago that Utah Valley is massively overrated, and I am not getting away from that. I don't understand how Utah Valley is like 110th on KenPom here, or 111th. You look at their non-conference. Yeah, they beat BYU, but what we found out about BYU? We found out BYU is just another overrated team. In my opinion, they don't have any massive wins. I think they just kind of look kind of average. Yeah, they beat Grand Canyon at home. It was a weird spot for Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon's a terrible away team. Then they go to lose to Dixie State here. They're pretty good at home. Yeah, they beat Seattle, but I also watched New Mexico State play a little bit, Doug, and I saw them play against Seattle. And holy cow, they went up there. They had complete control. This was a letdown spot for them after they beat Seattle. Third road game, right? And then Stephen F. Austin's kind of like the I don't care spot. Now they can share the title by winning this game with those other two schools, Stephen F. Austin. And I just think that this is an easy win for them. I'm going to be laying the points for this game, and I think it's a great one that you picked, Kyle. I think it's an under the radar game that could have some value. So hopefully this overrated number on 111 Utah Valley comes through on the spread.
Yeah, I think let me share here real quick. Share my screen to show you the shot quality numbers here. Kiev, it doesn't make me feel any better necessarily, but you and I both had Grand Canyon in that game against New Mexico State. New Mexico State was making all kinds of threes in that game, just raining in threes. And if you look at shot quality here, they believe that while New Mexico State won that game by 16, they should have lost by 3. I wish I could get my money back for that one. But then they beat Seattle. They lost to Chicago State by 2. They think they should have won by 9. They lost to Stephen F. Austin by 2. They should have won by 4. And the first game against Utah Valley, they lost by 10. They believe they should have won by 9. I think that kind of stands out. I see Bart Torvik has this number at 4.5. Guys, I don't think we'll get as good as 4.5. If we do, I'm going to fire on that one right away. But I think this is an interesting spot because New Mexico State has to be highly motivated now. I mean, if they're not motivated now, when would they ever be motivated? So I do like them here in this spot.
All right, wonderful. We have agreement. That means it's a guarantee, right? Guaranteed loss. No. We'll see what happens. Now let's move on to the biggest game in the most disappointing conference in the whole year, and that is the ACC. North Carolina going to Duke. Duke minus 12, according to Ken Pom, and I think it will be. The total is, I'm saying 152. Ken Pom has 154. So many competing powers in this one. You have the Coach K angle. Last game at Cameron Indoor Stadium as a coach. The team's going to get up for that. Then you have North Carolina saying, we win this game, we get in. And I believe that North Carolina will get in because of the politics in the committee and the selecting the tournament. I think they'll at least be the first playing if they win this game. If they lose this game, they won't. I think the kids know this. So that's really interesting to me. Now, you have to see the motivation on UNC's side to make the tournament. My problem with UNC is that they lost some guys this year. You know, they're playing a little bit on a skeleton crew themselves. Guys like Garcia, you know, a couple guys earlier in the season. They're basically on a 7-man rotation. And if you count Kerwin Walton, that's a 7-man, but he was benched last game. I think he's on Hubert Davis's shit list for whatever reason, guys. So UNC got smashed at home by Duke this year. But you have to think that they're going to be massively motivated here. And I'm wondering if this Coach K last dance, whatever that they're going to want to say, keeps this spread pretty high. But I think I'm going to be having to play UNC just based on principle. When this is a 1-possession game at the end of the day, you are going to feel pretty good about it. So that's all I have to say about that game so far, and see what Doug's got.
Well, the question I'm surprised that you didn't bring up, Kiev, was that I assumed you two high rollers were going to be at this game, you know, from that standpoint,
Right.
because I saw the ticket prices
Yeah.
and, you know, and I thought, hey, that's right in your guys' wheelhouse from that standpoint. So, you know, I mean, hey, you know, you got an extra 10, 15, 20 grand. Figured, hey, a once in a lifetime experience like that, and you guys would pass it up. I was a little surprised that.
Hey, man, after what Duke did to Duke and the officiating did to us in 2016, I don't think I want to be part of that.
But no, you know, I mean, everything, you know, I don't like this North Carolina team. And to your point, Kiev, about, you know, North Carolina, and well, the other thing that's about this, and these are not strong numbers, but for the most part, the visitor does very well, has done well in this series. Not necessarily great, but they've done well, above 500. And so if Roy Williams was the coach in this situation, I would be more inclined to like what North Carolina would have to offer getting that many points. But with Hubert Davis and then the style of play that North Carolina has gone to, you know, I mean, it's going to take some time getting used to. I don't know what's going to happen with North Carolina going forward, about how the recruiting is going to play out and what have you. But I do know that for the most part, whenever Coach K has a game that his players feel they need to win or that they should win, and they're highly motivated, they usually get the job done. And so from that standpoint, I just think, just purely from talent, you could even forget some of the, you know, all the exterior stuff that's out there. I think Duke has a superior team. I think their motivation will be extreme from that standpoint. I'm not saying North Carolina doesn't have something to play for after getting spanked. If I was going to do anything, and this would be merely a lean, but I would at 12 and really probably even up to like 13.5, because I can see the betting public, you know, if it is 12, I can see it being pushed up to 13.5 or so. So I would lean with Duke in this case to get the job done and maybe win by 13, 14, 15 points overall.
All right. That's a little disagreement's always good. So I like that thought process there. And the electricity certainly will be with them. And one has to wonder if that's going to make them a little bit more nervous as a player. I'm not sure. I guess it just depends upon how good you are and how mentally ready you are for this situation. Coach K teams has faltered in the past. Real quick before I get to Kyle, I just want to show what a mess this is. Away from home, North Carolina ranks 348th, and Duke at home ranks 350th. What powers of horribleness is going to win out this? And then if you look at the consistency all over the board, I will say that I do like to bet an inconsistent dog rather than an inconsistent favorite, but I guess we'll see what's going to win out on this one as well. At least North Carolina did win 4 games in a row, but this is a massive spot for them. Kyle, let's see what you have for this matchup.
Well, I'm going to let the viewers decide if they'd rather side with Doug or Kiev on this one, because I don't like the side here in this one. There's no chance I'd bet this. There's also no chance I'd go to this game. Doug kind of stole my punchline here. I'm going to say I saw the average ticket price was like $7,000 or $8,000. Just insane. They said it was more expensive than the last few Super Bowls. Let me tell you, if I was going to a game, I'd rather go to the Super Bowl than I would this game. That's for sure. You're not going to catch me paying $8,000. Even if I had all kinds of money, I wouldn't go to this game.
Well, let me check my bucket list. It's a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah, there's a difference there. I can't believe. I mean, I understand why people want to go to this game, but that's out of control. That's ridiculous. As far as my lean in this game, I'm going to lean to the over. Both two teams have really struggled in transition defense. In fact, according to Shot Quality, transition defense, UNC is 260th in the country and Duke is 151. Now, both of these teams love to run. I don't think that's going to stop just because they're playing a rivalry game. I would really expect to see a quick tempo here. Duke put up 87 points in that first game. This is a spot where you would think North Carolina would score more than they did before. I can't take Carolina in this one, but I don't want to lay this amount of points with Duke either. There's a lot of pressure on them. So I'm just going to give a slight lean to the over, but I will tell you guys, I probably won't bet this game.
No, fair enough. I think the over would be a fun bet anyway. If you want to put some pizza money on it, just eat some popcorn, see what prevails here. I mean, if Duke's really that motivated and they're covering by 13 points anyway, I don't see them stopping. I see that ball dropping right all the way to the very last second of this game. And Andrew, yeah, that is really the ticket price. What Kyle said, are you going to the game? So if you do, send us a message and send me an invite too. I'd love to sit by you. All right, let's move on to the final game we're going to talk about then. And Penn State versus Rutgers. Doug picked this baby. I said I'm going to say Rutgers -6. I think it was Ken Palm might have it -4 or -5. Before Doug, I'm just going to say I have Rutgers as one of the most underrated teams from a Ken Palm at least perspective, and a little bit from a betting perspective, I think, this year. But I see -6 at least, and probably a total of, I think I wrote down 135. No, 121. Yeah, this could be probably 123, 124, I would think. Yeah, this could be a really low total. Doug, what do you have?
Yeah, I agree with you on your thought on the point spread. I have 6 or 6.5 is what I put down on this one. So this is going to be on the Big Ten Network early afternoon, and the last regular season game in New Jersey with this one. The Scarlet Knights last year got to the big dance, first time in 5 decades. They're not going to go back this year unless they win the Big Ten title, and we know they're not going to win the Big Ten title. So that's out of the way. But this team, the most impressive thing they did this season, they played those 5 ranked teams, in a row, and they went 4-1 straight up and against the spread. I can't get that out of my head. This team, this Rutgers team, they're tough-minded. They're extremely well coached. They were a veteran team, coming off of last year, but I'm just was really impressed with what they've done and how they have played overall. Now they play at Jersey Mike's Arena, and with a record of 13-3, winning by 9.1 points per game, they obviously leave the opponents quite hungry for a victory. Okay, and rather consistently as well in that case. Now, with rare exception, over the last seemingly the entire time Penn State's been in the Big Ten, they have struggled away from home in basketball. Okay. And this year is absolutely no different than that. They're 1-8 straight up as a road pooch, losing by 7.8 points per game. This Rutgers lost by 17 earlier at Penn State. And this is before they kind of got their team figured out and got on a little bit of a roll there and started playing better. I think they get their revenge and beat the anticipated spread. I'm going to say of -6 to -6.5 rather easily, take care of business, okay, at Jersey Mike's Arena this Sunday.
Ooh, look at that. Rutgers red hot. Man, I'll tell you this, though, Doug. Low total laying points is never something I'm looking to do, but I also never want to bet against Rutgers at the rack. Kyle, what are your thoughts on this?
First, love Jersey Mike's. So, I love the name of the arena because Jersey Mike's is one of my favorite subs. I will say, too, betting against Rutgers at home is not an option for me. It's either I'm betting Rutgers or I'm passing. The under is something I would consider at 123 or 124. I think the first game, the pace was extremely slow. I don't know why this game would be any different. In fact, the pace of the first game was, 65 possessions, a little bit quicker than I would have thought, but I see shot quality has that first game still, even at that, was higher scoring than they believe it should have been. These two teams are both better defensively than they are on offense. Rutgers so much better at home. I don't have their Haslametrics home court rating right in front of me, Kiev, but I assume it's pretty darn good. And Penn State away from home has had some pretty poor performances. They've laid an egg multiple times. I think they could in this one. Doug, I'm not sure that Rutgers might still make the NCAA tournament at this point. I mean, the wins that they have, I was kind of looking at the bubble teams according to the bracketologists. Rutgers is in the first four out by a couple of them. I think Rutgers, if they win this game and win a couple games in the Big Ten tournament, could be in. And that's kind of an argument that you could have because Rutgers has some horrible losses this year. I mean, just some terrible losses. They lost at home to Lafayette, pretty unacceptable. They lost at UMass. They lost to DePaul. This is a team that has really bad losses. But not many teams on the bubble have the wins that Rutgers has. So what matters more? I mean, they beat Purdue at home. They beat Wisconsin on the road. They beat Illinois at home. This is a Rutgers team that can beat the best teams, and they're certainly playing better late in the season. I like your Rutgers play in this one. I hope it's not higher than 6 because, like Kiev said, I hate laying too many points with the total in the 120s. Having said that, though, Rutgers is the only side I could take, and I would lean under as well.
If those bracketologists have Rutgers out, I like to smack them. Rutgers, with the big wins that they've made, you have to give up some hiccups. And I've seen much worse teams get in. I think Ken Pom is completely wrong in this team. I think they're in the 30s or 40s, not 72. And I think if that's the case, Kyle, about some of them still worried about them making it, that just makes me look like the Rutgers play even more. And I don't do a ton of parlays in basketball. I experiment with a few and had some success. I think that a money line parlay, if you box them up with like a New Mexico State, just both money lines, you're going to get plus 100, plus 110, something like that. I think that's not a terrible look. Look at some situations where some teams might quit. So if it gets out of hand, you can look at it like that. If you can try to turn it into positive money. Obviously, you're adding more variance when you do this, but parlays are actually calculated correctly. And when it comes to single sports like golf and like UFC, I have no problem with parlays. A little bit less in basketball here, but from a motivational angle, Rutgers all the way. Penn State is a little bit tricky too. They've overachieved in some games, so past the 6, I would be a little nervous too. But let's see if we can get it early.
Yeah, and Kyle, to the things that both of you guys said, the thing that you said about with Rutgers, Kyle, about the ability to get in, I guess I'm just looking at it from the standpoint. Yes, Rutgers is in the Big Ten. However, they're still Rutgers, and I know that there's not supposed to be personal feelings aside, in picking these teams. But if for example, if it came down to, and I'm not saying this is a one-to-one correlation, but if it came down to North Carolina or Rutgers to get in, sure. Okay, I think we know how that would play out, if all things being equal. The other thing that you said, Kiev, about the ACC being disappointing, this is a theory that I have come up with. I have no basis of proof of it, but the one thing I have noticed is that the ACC in the last few years has gone down just overall, and yet the SEC has gone up. And so with that, I firmly believe that the recruiting of the SEC particularly in that general region has gone up at the expense of the ACC. And I think that's why you see the balance of power in those two conferences has been altered. Again, and more specifically throughout the entire conference, not just the top heavy teams. So I think now, again, I don't have a proof of that. I have not read or seen that anywhere, but it's just, it kind of makes common sense to me that that's seemingly is what happened. You guys have any thoughts on that?
I agree with that. I mean, I think that the SEC is unquestionably getting better, and you're sharing territory there with the ACC quite a bit. You see some ACC teams turning into kind of bottom feeders. Some of those SEC teams that were kind of middle of the road have gotten much better. So I definitely agree with that theory.
100%. You see LSU's recruiting over the past few years has been amazing. Alabama now, holy cow, they've been really moving up and up. And yeah, I mean, these SEC teams are fantastic now. I mean, Auburn, look at Auburn with Bruce Pearl over there, right? They're definitely stealing people away, And then you have that wild card like Memphis, they have a terrible coach, but a great recruiter, Penny Hardaway. I guess now it's legal to pay these guys. So let's see what else is going to change here when the landscape unfolds. But great points, Doug. Well, we're out of time, man. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on. Really appreciate you, Doug. Fantastic analysis as usual. Where could our viewers get your great information for the weekend?
Yes, I'm at it's Doug Upstone at DocsSports.com. And so it's been on a nice little roll in college basketball. Had a tough luck loser, especially with Fort Wayne yesterday, with some one missed free throw that would have put it over the top. But hey, you know what? That's sports betting, and that's going to happen. So hey, we're just going to look to bounce back. I love this time of year and had a lot of success over the years during the conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament. So excited for that. I know we're not talking NBA, but on a nice 22-9 NBA run. So here we go. Let's just get it done.
There you go. Kyle, you're loaded with information. Where could our listeners and viewers get your either plays or just stuff you've put out for the weekend?
HunterSportsPicks.com. You can also sign up for the free picks newsletter over there. Quite a few people have been signing up for that. I'll be sending out a free pick there this weekend. And also check out sportswageringu.com, something that Kiev and I have been working on here. We did a free college basketball class. So we've got a totals class and an ATS class up over there. Check out at SportsWagerU on Twitter. You can follow me at Kyle Hunter Picks on Twitter. And guys, let me just say too, always a pleasure to do the show with you guys. Two of the best guys in the industry, both handicappers and people.
You're too kind, Kyle.
As I say, I guess you don't know me that well then.
Definitely. And us two old guys are on TikTok now, so we're going to try to throw out a few plays on TikTok as well. We're learning the ropes. So we'll see.
There'll be three of us doing that probably by next week. Yes.
Wow.
All right. Well, fantastic. All right. Well, everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to tweet us at our Twitter handles. Have a great weekend. Go get some winners.
Thank you for watching Better Odds Sports Betting.